Chapter 6, the true party of greed. There is a profound difference between greed and aspiring to be rich, well off or wealthy. The envious leftist enjoys labeling conservatives as capitalists. The party of privileged rich old white men, corporate fat cats. Sorry, let me try that again. The envious leftist enjoys labeling conservatives as capitalists. The party of privileged rich old white men, corporate fat cats. In reality, leftists are driven by greed and money, especially other people's money. I realize that everybody is susceptible to greed, for it is a human trait, not political. True conservatives desire everyone to be rich. For why would we want our friends and family to remain poor? Or desire the ones we love to be left behind? The word capitalism does not share the same connotations between conservatives and leftists. Conservative views capitalism as a basic right, a system where all property and production are privately owned and controlled. The left believes the word to be evil, and the system it represents must be eradicated. A leftist believes the word is synonymous with the greedy and selfish acquisition of wealth and power while oppressing the common man. The left envisions administrations and commissars to own and control all property. The left fears banks and private ownership. They endeavor to control all property by government ownership. The left desires leading the masses in determining how property should be utilized. The leftist visions of wealth redistribution is not to make everyone rich, but to make everyone poor, creating a permanent underclass and subjugation to government. A welfare state has no ambition. A welfare state has no desire. A welfare state has no education. A welfare state has no compassion. It creates dependency. A welfare state creates power, but not for those individuals who need empowerment. A welfare state assumes people are incapable. When has leftist policy elevated the poor and huddled masses? Handing out free needles won't help heroin addicts, nor will free shopping carts help the homeless. Chapter 7, Key to a Leftist Heart. I believe that it's important to touch on some basic economic theory to put all this discussion into context. Yogi de Bear sensibly advocated being smarter than the average bear. When discussing economics with a leftist, that is true for a bear or for a bull. Liberalism used to mean liberty or limited government. Modern leftist, erroneous economic thinking is that government's role is to help prevent flaws in the capitalist system, mitigating or preventing recessions. If businesses weren't forced to react and respond to false economic data affected by incompetent governments, free markets would react accordingly and efficiently to natural inflation-induced business cycles. To control free enterprise, leftist politicians created endless laws endeavoring to protect us from ourselves and from those willing to commit this harm with fraud or other crimes. Now rampant fraud hides behind the laws, especially within government. Rather than doing our own due diligence by self-education or allowing us freedom to learn by our own mistakes, leftists created a multitude of laws and entitlements: welfare, unemployment insurance, child care, housing, food stamps, etc., to prevent those perceived inequalities and lessen risks in our lives. Yet the leftists are dismayed when their programs fail and ensuing unemployment and welfare run rampant. Their answer is government requires more taxpayer funds to be deposited into the mouth of that insatiable Leviathan. Chapter 8, Shining Knight on a Colorless Horse. Portraying themselves as the shining knight on a colorless horse, a leftist always ready for battle on behalf of the underclass or victim class. Loudly citing inequalities and injustice, as proudly exclaimed within the Regina Manifesto, they continuously search for an individual, group, or cause to elevate and exploit as the most important injustice needing eradication through government policy. Their insatiable campaign for domination never ceases. For leftist victims do not seek sustainable solutions. They will not present a viable platform of ideas, only engage in fear-mongering or continued victimization. The fundamental ideology of the left feeds off and promotes emotional flames in the minds and hearts of others. The leftist victim always has a built-in excuse for their constant anger. They will double down when they lose the battle, for the leftist endgame is to wage a war for total control with no survivors, especially conservatives. Triumphs are false victories, for they win by bullying with an authoritarian mandate. The left refuses to understand conservatism. If you voice your conservatism, look out, you are automatically branded a homophobe, xenophobe, bigot, uncompassionate. Yet the left can't define themselves. With all their feelings for compassion and caring, they fail to develop viable solutions, only destruction. Their answer is to point fingers toward conservatism and accusing them of not caring. Compassionate leftists portray themselves as humanitarian and peaceful, but the underlying message suggests succeeding through violence as displayed with all violent protests perpetrated from the beginning of Obama's presidency. Meanwhile, they accuse conservatives of being warmongers, full of hate, violence, and rage. We as conservatives know those so-called humanitarian leftists are neither generous nor compassionate or peaceful. We recognize those leftist dissenters. These leftist ground troops are always ready to take up arms for violent public disobedience to further their political agenda, especially if it means defeating conservatives. Random but targeted shootings of police officers in 2016 and 2017 have proved the left to be violent. Anti-Trump protesters heatedly crashed Trump rallies. Even back in the 70s, William Ayers and his Weather Underground radicals, an offshoot of the Violent Students for a Democratic Society, bombed the U.S. State Department building. And that one long string of violent protests that began in the mid-60s with protests against the Vietnam War.